I'm Brent, and welcome to the vlog. This week's topic, photography, specifically digital image manipulation. When the topic of photography is talked about, the first thing that comes to mind is how we take that image. Whilst yes, it is the key point of photography, there are many other factors that can be taken into consideration. One such point is digital editing or photo manipulation. Editing photos can help convey more about the image, such as tone, emotion, and overall perception of what we're trying to view. In doing this, it can allow the artist to express more about themselves or the subject than could have ever been perceived in just a raw image alone. For this week's task, we'll be looking at a late Year 7 to an early Year 8 curriculum based on the VCAA, which is the Victorian Curriculum Assessment Authority. The task will introduce some new concepts to the students, while also allowing students to work on pre-existing developmental knowledge of the topic and its technologies. The task will look at basic Photoshop editing. It'll allow students to get an initial overview of the Photoshop technology, as well as recover their own understandings of that technology. It will also provide some groundwork for some new understandings and also inspirations regarding what can be achieved using this technology. First, students will be introduced to some familiar techniques, such as layering, selection tools, and also brushes. All these techniques are great for Photoshop editing, and it'll make them feel a little more comfortable stepping into this topic once again. From this point, we're able to start looking further into the editing process, such as using effects in our photos, and being able to combine that with, say, something like a selection tool, where we can affect just certain areas of that photo instead of the overall picture. Other topics that can be included are things such as masking, which is something similar to what we covered last week with garbage mats. Also, cloning tools are a great technique as well to learn. Cloning tools are something where we can alter images and resurface them if there's some sort of fault in that picture. Once this groundwork has been established, students should also be shown some real-world examples of these techniques in use. Once this has been achieved, students can then go off into groups and discuss their ideas and brainstorm what else they can do or bring to the task. Then they can work together to take the photos and bring them back into the editing classroom. Once there, they'll then separate into individual cells and work on each photo individually. This allows for students to develop ideas by themselves and come out with different results at the end of the day. Whilst the ideas initially will start off as the same idea per pair, the results can be radically different between each student. By the end of the class, many students will have different ideas, different concepts, and also different techniques that have been used to achieve their results. A discussion is normally the best way to cover each one of these. It's where students come up and show their work and talk about exactly how they got to that point. Other students can come in and ask questions about how they achieve certain effects, and also maybe suggest ideas that they could work on next time for their further images. Okay, so let's start the task. I've taken a moment and I've thought about exactly what I want to do. I'm looking at something that's a bit more post-apocalyptic with some mutants. It's going to be basically myself and a whole bunch of myselves, similar to what I did last time, but this time I'll be fighting myself. It'll be one image and it'll be digitally enhanced so that I look like maybe I'm flying across the room in one stage or dying with some particles coming out of my chest. We'll see how it goes. So it's going to be a bit of a battle scene. I'll be editing the scene so that it has a bit of cloning included. Selection tools will be used, many layers, and also effects will be incorporated into the image. Okay, so let's go to the location and see how I've set up the shot. And here we are on location. It's actually just my backyard. We're not going for anything too realistic in this shot, so we'll see how it turns out. But let's take a walkthrough of what we've actually set up. And here's the shot. I've got the camera all positioned and ready to go. It is once again on an elevated platform, so I get a nice perspective. I have a chair sitting there. It won't be actually seen in the shot. It'll be utilised to show a throw-in effect, so that it looks like I'm actually flying in one of the shots. During the shot, I'll be having two different characters. I'll have the enemies, which will be sort of a bandit type character, slightly cyborg, slightly human. The other character will be the main character, the hero of the shot. He's going to be wearing more of a leather get-up, again along the lines of post-apocalyptia. Now that we've taken the shots, we can go back into Photoshop and start editing the raw images. Here I have my initial shot. What I'm going to do with this image is I will crop it so that it's more at an aspect ratio that I'm happy with. I will do a bit of color correcting. As you can see, it was quite a bright day when I took this shot, so I'll need to change those colors and tones just so that it suits more of the mood that I'm trying to get across. Obviously I have my hero pose here, and that's going to be my base layer. So let's start with this image right here. What I'll do is I'll convert this into a layer so I can start editing the actual image. I do that by double clicking on the word background and just change it into a new layer. I'll call this main because that's what it is. Okay, from here I can change its coloring, I can change its aspect ratio. But right now I'm going to start adding other images of myself into the image. Let's take a look at another shot that I also have. As you can see, I have a dead enemy right just down the bottom here. I'll copy that image by pushing Ctrl A to select it, so we get this little dotted line around the edge, and then Ctrl C to copy the image. I can then go back into my main image and push Ctrl V, which then pastes that image into our layers list, as you can see just on the right hand side here. It's automatically called layer 1 because we don't have a layer called layer 1 just yet, but I can change that. It's always best to make sure that renaming layers does happen, otherwise it can get quite confusing when you get up to layer 26 or 98. So let's call this one dead because that's what he is. Now at the moment, if I push these little eye icons, I can actually hide and unhide the actual layers. But at the moment, I can't see both images at once. I can only see them individually by pressing this eye icon. What we can do to rectify that is by using a masking tool, and I'll apply it to the dead layer right here. So what I'll do is I'll go down to the bottom here and add layer mask. Clicking on that will add a little property to this layer right here. It's a white square. Now we can select both, but I'm more interested in this white square right now because if I get out my paintbrush tool, and just for demonstration's sake, I'll make the paintbrush fairly large so we can see what's going on. And I will start painting. Now it won't be a black paintbrush that actually appears, it'll be the underside of the next layer. Because what I'm doing is I am, as you can see on the side here, you've got a lot of black scribble now. So I'm revealing this main layer here by selecting what to show and what not to show, and that's just chosen by what's black and what's white. Everything that's white will be from this top layer, everything black, the bottom layer. Now let's see what we've done. So far
I have got quite a few layers here, but we'll just ignore those for now. I will go through them one by one. I've gone a little bit ahead, but we can see how that's been done. I've initially set up the aspect ratio that I wanted. All I did was just crop the actual image. I then made sure that I could add all my other layers of images on top of each other and added a mask to each one of them, as you can see on the side here. These 4 have masks, and they've only got a small white surface area, and that's just around the actual person or myself in the shot. I've done this so that I don't have any continuity issues with shadows in the scene, because while I was taking the pictures, this tree shadow was actually moving, and I didn't want that affecting the rest of the images. So let's have a look at the other ones that I've cropped. We've got this one and this one. This one here was quite tricky, as I had an actual chair underneath me and part of a chair up here, and I just removed that from the shot. So let's see the before and after of that. I'll just bring you over to this just here, so you can see me just laying back on the chair. It gives a nice throwback effect, so I can edit out that chair and it just makes it look like I'm just flying across the screen. Okay, now that I've glued all of my images together, so I have a bit of an action sequence going on, I'm going to add in some special effects that are very simple to replicate. I'm going to add in gunfire effects, as you can see right here. This is something that didn't use anything too fancy. It's really just a bit of brushes, glow effects, and smudge tools. The way I've done this is just with my brush knowledge. I've gone into the brush properties by clicking here and just on the side here, and I've edited the brush properties, scattering and shape dynamics for example. I've also added glow effects. By doing this, I can go into the actual layer properties and add an outer glow to what is on that layer. So gunfire 2 for example. Right click, blending options, and I've got the outer glow here selected. Another thing I used to pull off this little effect was our smudge tool that I've just got on the side here. If that's not showing up, it might be the blur tool. You just need to hold down on that button and go down to smudge tool. And I've just done that to just add a bit of a shine effect off the actual impact marks on this character here. Let's take a look at what else has been done. I have a smoke effect that I've just added in. All I used was a bit of blurring and also one of the filters here in the other category under maximum. It makes more of a smoke effect. It sort of accentuates what I've blurred. I have also added in a light blade. That's just basically adding a shape and adding a glow to it. Bit of reflecting here off the surface of the grass for my other light blade, and a few little other effects. Like I say, nothing that needs any plugins. It's all Photoshop based. And lastly, but not leastly, is a bit of lighting effect, just to darken and accentuate all those shadows and give it more of a cinema quality effect to it. Let's take a look at a nice full screen of the final product. There's my final result for that task. Obviously, each image will be unique and different to the other one. Now let's take a look at some resources that might be helpful for both students and teachers to take a look at, not only for digital manipulation, but also on taking the photo in general. A great resource to start off with is the actual manual to whatever technology that you're about to use. Schools come with various forms of technology and they change often, and the problem is that it's hard to keep up. But if you look back at that manual, you'll find out a lot of different ways that you can actually use that technology and utilize it for the best of its abilities. Another great resource is Adobe.com. Now yes, we have looked at this resource once before, but we haven't looked at this side of it, the Photoshop side. This section of the website is great for video tutorials, frequently asked questions, and forums, and you can get some great responses from people in the know, and all of these areas are moderated, so they're great for students to learn with. Another great resource is free to use, and it's called stock.xchng. All you need to do is sign up, and then you have access to a great amount of images that can be then incorporated into your final design free of charge. This website's great for doing things like what we did in the task just before, using masking tools, and it can blend between the images that you've taken and also great scenic shots that they've taken on their website. The next resource is DeviantART. It's a website that's community based. People create a lot of art on this website, and it's uploaded by the second. What we can do is we can look on the category side and focus it mainly on digital manipulation and photo editing. And you can take a look at these sections for some great inspiration and just general ideas that can be incorporated into your own designs or your students' designs. Lastly, if you're in the area, the Melbourne Art Gallery can be a dynamic learning experience for students who are unaccustomed to photographic art, and can help them generate some enthusiasm towards the medium. Be sure to check ahead of time though, as the gallery's content changes often.
The VCAA progression points that we're going to look at are based at a 7.5 standard. These points will be taking a look at the creating and making side of the spectrum. Let's take a look at them now. In this point, students will need to try out new production techniques that best utilize Photoshop's technology. The best way of getting the most out of this point is to give students a bit of a goal to set. We could maybe look at 2 techniques that could be used in photo editing in the classroom's introduction. But during the class, students will then need to go out of their way and research other techniques that they can use in their digital manipulation of their images. For the next technique, it's similar to the last one. It's for students to further develop upon new techniques, and they may also want to research new processes in image manipulation that can help towards their final product, and also aid in new concepts during classroom discussions. Lastly, the ability for students to reflect after this activity can help them in creating a stronger connection with what they've just learned, and also developed a better understanding of other techniques available to them throughout the class. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'm looking forward to seeing you for the next one. The next topic will be radio. Until then, happy editing. Once this groundwork has been covered, students should also be shown examples of real-world examples, and some more examples.